Peace and welcome back. My name is Omar and today I would like to share some of my thoughts regarding Al-Fatiha. Al-Fatiha is the first chapter of the recitation, and as Sam Gerrans pointed out, it is designed like a contract, and it is called Kitabu la Rayba Fi, so the covenant about which there is no doubt. And I watched his video, and I always ask myself, well, what does it really mean? Why is it called the opening? The opening to the book? Or is it something else? What is the function of those 7 verses? And what it really came down to is that those verses are the key formula, or those words are, this is what you have to say to someone. And the reaction while reciting that, when you really look into their eyes and you recite Al-Fatiha, you will see how they will react. And based upon this reaction, this person will fall into a category of archetypical humans, or in a specific human category. There are those who will accept that, who will recognize that those words are from God, and they will become conscious of their belief. So they might have been believers all along, but they didn't had Huda, guidance. So those 7 verses, Al-Fatiha, opened their heart to the guidance that will proceed after that. So it is a moment in their life when somebody hears that or gets warned, where life completely changes and everything will start to make sense. So this is what we have to say to others. This is how you warn. And there are 3 reactions to that. Like I said, the first one is the one who accepts that, and you will see if they are righteous or not. And the other one is he who is blind and deaf and does not understand anything. And it doesn't matter if you say those words or not. They are like, when you say that and you look into their eyes, it's they are not really alive. They are not really alive at that moment. Like, they are physically they are there, but they are completely, they block that. And it is like God says, it is the same whether thou warnest them or thou hast not warned them. They do not believe. So they will never, not never, but they reject this contract with their hearts. So God has sealed their hearts, and you can see the covering of their sight. And God says that they will go to hell. So we have 2 kinds of people established. We have those who will go, who will have a tremendous achievement, and there are those who will have a tremendous punishment. So, in other words, speaking, heaven and hell, or good and evil. Two words that nobody really likes to use, but I like that. So we have good people, good humans, and bad ones, evil ones. And the reaction of the recitation of Al-Fatiha gives you the undoubtedly evidence of in which category this person falls. And this is important because the Quran, in the later verses, they say how you should treat whom in which situation and what you should do. So it is important to know who you are dealing with. And when you are a believer, you should probably start with your own family. And how should you do that? You should just, I don't know, go to one and say those words. Recite Al-Fatiha and look in their eyes. And see what their reaction is. Then you have clearance. And you can move on. So in verse 7 we have, and among men is he who says, we believe in God in the last day, and they are not believers. So, it is like God is in this moment of, okay, you have recited Al-Fatiha, and they will say afterwards, oh, we believe in God in the last day. We believe. So they will say to you that they are believers, but, like God says, and they are not believers. And the reason for that is they want to deceive God, and they want to deceive you, and they do not perceive themselves. And in their hearts is disease, so God increases them in disease. And they have a painful punishment for that, about which they lied. So those people are evil too. But they are different from those who are just indifferent to the words or the warning. And the reason is because they see potential. They see worldly benefit in lying to you. So they just say that, yeah, we are believers, and so on. It's like God gives us just those small words, but in fact, everything they do and everything they say to you is for the worldly pleasures and not for the hereafter, which is a difference. So they are evil too, but they are a little bit more evil. They're a little bit, I don't know. They, I wouldn't say they are more intelligent, but they see in you an opportunity or any kind. There are reasons, and they might have all different reasons why they would lie to you, but they lie to you. And if you know that they are not believers, because of course they won't act upon the Quran, and you see that they are not righteous, you can deconstruct their lie, because they think he can't know. He can't know that I am lying. And he will not know that I am lying. But you know that he is lying. So this is a very big advantage you have. It's like you have the ultimate knowledge about all mankind. If you want to, this is the highest psychological level you can get onto. that you know that just based upon the fact how he reacted and how he, or if he acts upon the Quran or not. And the Quran also states that most of them are most people, most humans in the world are those who spurn guidance while claiming virtue. So most people will say to you, and also will say to others, they deceive themselves. So they not only on an individual level, but also on a collectivistic level, they only lie. Also, they lie. Yeah, you know what I mean. People from religion, from institutional religion, they all lie. They deceive themselves, and they deceive all the others, because they don't really believe in God. Most of them. So you have a very good advantage, and they will go to hell as well. And of course, they create corruption. So they take the truth and they corrupt it into falseness. And this is essentially what will always happen. When you have the truth, people will never, like those who spurn guidance while claiming virtue, they will not follow what the scripture says, but they will imitate and corrupt that, the messenger or the believers. They will get, and it is what you see with traditional Islam. Like I don't really think that traditional Islam was like constructed, but this was just a lot of people who never got it, but they were just fanboys of Muhammad and his disciples, but his the believing companions. And then they started just to imitate, and they say, the messenger did that and this and this and that and that, and this is what constitutes the Islam, or this is what constitutes what is written in this book, because they do not understand. They cannot understand. In fact, nobody can understand the Quran. The elite cannot grasp the things from the Quran. There is a barrier between, or there's like, the barrier is like a own realm of consciousness for the believing men, and they are the only ones who can understand the verses. It is impossible for anybody else to grasp. So what they do is they look at everything else those people do, and they will copy that, or they will corrupt that. So it's natural if you understand the nature of someone who spurns guidance while claiming virtue. And this is very, very long. Like I prefer to say the Arabic word الذين كافروا. It's just more convenient. Yeah, and of course, when they are alone and they are in their bed and they are thinking about, they will say, "Oh, yeah, this is everything just for my." This is just to deceive. This is what God calls. And when they meet those who heed warning, they say, "We believe." But when they are alone with their shaitans, they say, "We are with you, we are but mocking." God mocks them and assists them wandering blindly in their inordinacy. And verse 17, I know I jumped a little bit, but number 17 is also very interesting because it states, "Their example is like the example of one who kindles a fire. When it has illuminated around about him, God takes away their light and leaves them in darkness. They do not see. Deaf, dumb, blind, they will not return." So it is set. It is set. Set characteristics. They are deaf, they are dumb, they are blind. So you cannot guide them by saying this is wrong or this and this. They do not understand and they will not return. And when we look at verse 20, it states the lightning night snatches away their sight. Whenever it gives them light, they walk therein, and when it darkens against them, they stand. And had God willed, he would have taken away their hearing and their sight. God is powerful over all things. And this is very interesting if you, or if I can talk from my experience, because those people, they are, when you are good to them, when you are friendly to them, they think, they think that they have you. They think that you are their best friend. They think that that they will profit from you. That they think that they will gain from you. And you are the one essentially who gives them the light, and they will always take the opportunity. So when I write to someone on my smartphone, whom I know that he is one who spurns guidance while claiming virtue, he will always take the opportunity, and it doesn't matter what. Yeah, and it relates to those kind of people. What I found out is that they accept every face from you. What I mean by that is when I act, when I try to be an actor, the problem was that people never could distinguish between acting and my real me. So when I act, people actually think that I am the one. I am like real. You know what I mean? And in the journey of my life, I developed a lot of a set of faces, as you can see. So I know exactly how I should behave in what situation, and it depends on what kind of person is in front of me and who is looking. And it is intuitive. It is not. I don't need to think about that. It is just natural. And I became aware of that like when I was like 16. And then I just gained information. I observed my surroundings. I observed people who had different attitudes, and I just learned more and more and more and more. And I can be everybody I want. I want to. And those who spurn guidance while claiming virtue, and also those who are indifferent, they believe that you are this kind of person. And it's very funny, and it's very useful, and this is, I think, what is called a barrier. So a believer only is a believer in this sense when he is around other believers. But unfortunately, I have never met a believer. But there is also a third category of evil people, and that is the Waverers. They are not only the most dangerous, but they are also the most interesting. Because it is like you have the Quranic verses, and you can check them. Just download the Quran from Quran.com, and then you have the PDF file, and you can go into the search bar, and you can just type in Waverer, and then you get all the instances, and you can click them, and you have what comes with that term and with that person. And it is really interesting to see how it applies to real life. Not only because the Quran is 100% correct, but it explains to you why he is like that. And I don't want to drop names or something, but it is like those people, I had really, really deep conversations with that Waverer, and very meaningful ones, and I never had those kind of conversations in my life. The most deep I can get is when I talk to myself, and this was really the first time when I really was convinced that he's a believer too. Because there's just a realm of deepness that only a believer can touch, if you want to call it like that. And he said that he also believes in the Quran, and so on and so forth. But when it came to real life, because we just texted and had like voice messaging, he never wanted to meet me. He refused to meet me because he just it is like a drunken man on a light switch who cannot decide if he wants to be in darkness or in the light. So it's tick, 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 tick. And the thing is, like, when we spoke together, when it came to real life and everything, it was just like he completely had a different persona. Completely different. He was a different person. And he completely neglected everything. He didn't saw me whatsoever in any particular kind. He didn't saw any value in me. He was disgusted by my belief, in the sense of that he sees me only as someone who's because he sees belief and that kind of belief, and like, you know what I mean, like just appreciating nature and talking about that, like good, beautiful things. He thinks that this is a weakness, that it is unmanly, and that it should be dismissed, and it is not worth to meet with somebody who has like this, and he thinks that I had only that, which is of course not true. And every other thing he didn't understand. And he also thought that he was the only person who was right, and that his understanding of the Quran was right too. But he didn't touch your work, but he affiliated to your work, Sam. It is like very destructive, and it breaks your heart. He breaks your heart a lot of times. And I wasn't aware of that. In fact, I knew that he was a waverer. I cut the relationship, and afterwards I thought that he had changed, but he didn't. He hadn't changed. Because that's what he was talking was not that what he actually did. And I realized that he was just using me for his pleasure, for his he thought that like belief in everything is just one section. It's one section of life, and you have to separate that from the worldly life. So, like I said, like a waverer is neither to these nor to those, wavering in between, and couldn't decide. And I said to him, like, every person, because I knew the person who were in his reach, or the persons who he is working with every day. I said to him that they are manipulating him, and I gave him the facts and everything. And it became true, but he couldn't acknowledge that I knew that beforehand, because of course I had the Quranic guidance, I had the information, so it is really easy to identify a liar. And he developed an own religion. Like he developed an own religion. He affiliates to the Quran. He says it is also everything is based on the Quran, but he never acted upon that. And maybe a little bit sometimes, like some verses yes and some verses not. And this is like, it was, on the one hand, it was like on the first months, it was the most beautiful time of my life. And all this love with the time just turned into hatred, because you realize what the person really is. And it was my fault that I didn't cut the relation back then, but I cut it like the Quran wants it from you, and to speak an effective word and to distance from them. And I don't want any contact with him anymore. And if you know the background of that waverer in regards to what he had an influence on my life, it is unbelievable. It is unbelievable, but that is what it took and what it takes to move forward. And Sam, if you are listening, I know that you probably had the same experience with someone who you were, or who you thought you were very close with, but when it came down to really doing something in real life, just meeting, it was not real, or it was, you know what I mean. And you understand the pain. You understand the pain, and that pain changes someone. And I was at the edge, really. I was really at the edge, because I got disappointed from a lot of people in my life. Like, in fact, everybody has disappointed me. When you're a believer and you live in an evil society, everybody will disappoint you. And when you have never met a believer before, then this is the path you had to go. Everybody. It doesn't really matter. Your parents, your siblings, your sister, your everything, everybody. And you have to handle that. And I know what it is like when you think you finally found someone, but in the end, you know that he probably was a waverer, or is one. And the intervals, like, it is very unpredictable when they, like looking back, when they changed personas. Like this is the reason why I always stuck to that person, because I wanted to really know, and I kind of forced him to meet, and then I recited Al-Fatiha. I gave them the Quran, and we both read it, and I asked him, what does this mean? And he couldn't tell. He couldn't understand my words. When I talked about the Quran regarding anything, he couldn't understand it. And I could see in his eyes that it was like corruption. And yeah, this is a very big lesson. It was the biggest lesson of my life so far. And yeah, what should I... There was something else. I was talking about the intervals, yeah. The thing is that they are your best friend, or they see you as the best friend, but in the next second they see you as your greatest enemy. And this is also the reason why in battle, when they when they desert, or they go back, and not for a tactic or strategy, or to go to another group, and they come back, you have to in Japanese you would say omae wa kurus, because they're unpredictable, and they are your enemy, and you should treat them as your enemy, some kind. But if they repent and act upon the Quran and do deeds of righteousness, there is a possibility that they stay as a believer. Although I think that the chance is very low, because the verses of them going into hell are a lot more frequent than that they actually repent. I think it's only stated once. Yeah, but they do realize that, like, when they are in the disbelieving phase, or when they are disbelieving, when the lights are off, they can remember that they had like this very inner relationship, but it really was not a relationship when you don't meet another, because real life is different. It is different. So those are my thoughts regarding the human archetypes, and some of my experiences with Waverers. And I am very excited to find someone, or to meet someone who is actually like a real believer. And I think it should be one of the most beautiful things that you can experience in life. And God willing. So I hope you learned something new. I hope you learned something useful. Some people are familiar with this outro. And leave some comments if you have something constructive to say. And we will hear us, God willing, in the next talk. Peace.